Hey everyone, my name is JJ Paulson. I'm a student entrepreneur and co-founder of the tech startup Perch. I want to invite you for coffee and conversation on our weekly series, Coffee Talks. We're here to showcase the heartbeat of Gainesville's entrepreneurial spirit. I want to give a quick thank you as this series is made possible by Afternoon Roasting and Seven Ashes Productions. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and let's explore the exciting world of entrepreneurship together. Now let's meet this week's guest.
Okay, cool. Let's get it going. So we're back again. Some housekeeping as far as coffee talks go. We're in the summertime. We're gonna do once a month instead of weekly, and I'm excited to get things going for the summer series. And so one of the things we're gonna change as well is we're gonna be on location. And so today we have an author, so it makes sense for us to be at the Lynx, which is the new bookstore downtown. Gorgeous facility. We're grateful that we're able to do it here. And so to kick things off, we have Jonathan Spoliansky. Friend of mine, I was reflecting, it's been 9 years. So it's been 9 years since we've known each other, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Yes. So if you're good to go, let's get into it. So Jonathan is a local small business owner, entrepreneur, and then he recently released a book. It's one of those books where short read, but it's just very jam-packed. And I'm hoping today we're gonna unpack some of that stuff, and let's get it going. Please tell us what's the story behind Jonathan Spoliansky. Who are you?
So I'm a person that I like to reinvent myself. Someone once told me, they said when I became a Hare Krishna, they said to my mom, they said, "It's okay, it's just a phase." And I said to her, "Yeah, it's just a phase. Everything's a phase. If it's not a phase, it means that I'm dead." And so in this new phase of my life, I've reinvented myself. I'm an author and happiness coach, and I wrote a book to contribute a little bit to the world and help share all the things that I've learned in my travels and my experiences so that I can give back a little bit of all the goodness that I've received.
Anything else you want to add to that?
I'm a father, a husband, a friend. I'm seeking to be a better person each day.
So on that note, right, my takeaway from the book, it's really about, yes, happiness is the key, right? And happiness is something that we can all arrive at for ourselves. But you did a really good job of really getting into the core of it. And the core of it is internal, it's not external, right? And so you mentioned the different phases of your life. I think you graduated from UF as well too. So what was that college experience like? Because a lot of our audiences are college students. If you can recall back in your college experience, what phase was that? Was that crossover with the Hare Krishna phase?
So no, so I've been keeping a journal since I was in 4th grade, and from the time I started writing the journal when I was like 9, 10 all the way to about 18. If I have, when I'm writing it, it's called the Testosterone Chronicles, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Okay.
And then the college phase was more like my spiritual exploration phase, like trying to figure out who I was, what I was doing here, where am I going, what's reality, what's God. And so college for me was an important part of my spiritual development. Professionally, I wanted to quit, college, because I realized that I didn't need college in order to do what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But I did college. I completed college to satisfy my mother and father. My mom asked me, "Don't quit. You're so close to finishing." I'm like, "I don't need this for what I want to do with my life." But I was like, to respect them and all their hard work and sacrifice of moving to another country and giving the opportunity for their children to be born free citizens in the country, I finished college for them. Graduated with a degree in business, but I was a businessman since I was 15 years old, so I didn't need college to be a businessman, nor do I. But it served me. It allowed me to temporarily, before owning a business, and it allowed me to be a high school teacher because I had a bachelor's degree. So it served its purpose. But the majority of my time that I spent in college was doing self-exploration, spiritual technologies for self-exploration, to figure out who I am and what I'm doing here and what's my purpose. And in that journey, I learned to develop this internal spiritual quality called happiness, seeking to be more happy every day.
So you mentioned in the book, right? So it's the little things. It's to do things that make you happy. You mentioned about the example of the rainbow. There are a lot of things that it seems to me that you were able to get there at a very young age, right? Has that always been the case for you, since because of the journal taking and the different practices that you've had since you were a kid?
To be able to have happiness at an early age, I think it's just a matter of having self-reflection. I don't know that, I know that no one is created the same as anybody else. But like at a young age, I realized that, for example, when I was 15, I started an Italian ice business. And one of the first things I did when I earned my money was I bought a pair of Ray-Bans, $130 Ray-Ban sunglasses. Then I got my car, and one day it was raining, and I was unpacking the stuff, and the Ray-Bans fell off my head, and I ran them over. From that day, I never paid more than $10 for a pair of sunglasses, because I realized I don't need a $30 pair of sunglasses. They're going to make me happy. Yep. In reality, it's going to make me unhappy if I spend that money and I break them or lose them or run them over. So there's things that I began to notice when I was younger. Like I had a bunch of friends in high school that, they loved partying, they loved gossiping, they loved buying all the newest clothes and following all the trends. And I found that stuff didn't make me happy. So I started distancing myself from those things. I started realizing that I don't care. Back then I said, I don't care what people think about me. My happiness doesn't depend on what other people think about me. Obviously, it's good to care what people think about you so that we don't run amok and make a mess of the world. But my happiness wasn't contingent upon what other people thought about me. So I started dyeing my hair and wearing funky clothes and painting my nails, and just because.
Is that part of the experimentation part? Just to see what are
to push the limits.
Exactly. Yeah. Some of the parameters and just what life is, right? Yeah. So that's college for you?
That was college. I was a little bit more tame. But that was high school.
Ah, got it. Okay.
With all the hair and the nails and all that. But I did have hair. I had my dreadlocks in college.
Did you really?
Yeah, I had the dreadlocks down to past my chest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Long hair, dreadlocks. And then eventually I met the Hare Krishnas at the end of college. And then I started doing spiritual things without the use of spiritual technologies. Got it. Like practicing spirituality in a cleaner frame of mind, let's say.
Right. Was that something that sort of happened, or you woke up one day and realized I don't need the aid of these technologies and say that
no,
there's deeper things that I could dive into?
Well, I was seeking to dive into deeper things without the use of external things, but I think with anything, people develop vices, and they think they need things in order to find happiness. And with time, we evolve as human beings and clean our lives up, God willing.
And so that's the other aspect. So part of the book that I appreciate is very simple, right? It's simple. You mentioned there are 5 keys. And part of the 5 keys is derived from the framework of Reiki practice. So for those of us who don't know Reiki, could you share a little bit about what is that framework? How did you arrive there, and how did you use those 5 keys as the base of your own exploration?
So Reiki, essentially, I'm not like a Reiki expert, but I was attending a lecture by a Reiki master, a Brazilian Reiki master, and Reiki is essentially an energy work to redirect the flow of the energy in a person's body. And so, but it's also there's also spiritual energy. And so I was listening to him give this lecture, and he was talking about the 5 tenets of Reiki, which are: just for today, I won't be angry. Just for today, I won't worry. Just for today, I will show gratitude, or I will give thanks. Just for today, I will work honestly. And just for today, I will be kind to all living beings. It just clicked. All these things that I'd been studying in my life, all these experiences that I had the inspiration to write the book. So I attended his lecture, and then I sat down at the computer and I started writing. Started writing, and 2 weeks later I had the book, and it took far longer to edit and put it together than it did to make the content for it.
So even though it's simple, within it as well is the practice, right? It's, in principle, we can read and understand in theory and high level. How would you go about having it as a daily practice, right? So for example, if I'm a college student, one of the things I read is like, I wish I knew this stuff when I was in college. But I also remind myself that it comes with life experience as well too. It might not land for me when I read in college versus now, right? And so if somebody comes to you and said, okay, well, I read your book, I really want to put it into practice, what would your advice be for?
Well, my advice would be to steer them to do happiness coaching, where I give practical, it's like I was speaking with you about. I'm in the process of developing a workbook.
Okay.
I have 3 books in this series. The second book hasn't been released yet. It's a longer form book where there's parables and stories that show the application of these 5 keys. And then the third book is the development of a workbook that people can set goals and fill it out and track their progress real time, which is the basis of what I use for the happiness coaching. But so for example, there's a lot of simple solutions here that anybody can try. You don't have to have a happiness coach. You don't have to buy a workbook. Simple things that we learned in school, most of us, for example, walk away from a fight, right? Didn't you learn that? Didn't your parents teach you that? Or at least you learned that in school? I think most of us did. When we feel angry, walk away, go for a walk, take a bike ride, cool off, then go back and assess the situation with a different set of eyes. Drink a cup of water. Drinking a cup of water stimulates the parasympathetic response. It releases happy chemicals, calm a person down so they don't say something that later they're going to regret. In the book, we talk about having gratitude. Gratitude is a simple practice that we can start the moment we wake up. The moment we wake up, we can start naming off the things that we're grateful for. This aspect of gratitude is found in all the religions. In all the religions, they talk about having gratitude and recognizing the superior God in the world. And even if we don't believe in God, we can still wake up and have gratitude every morning. Thankful for our life, thankful for our breath, thankful for our health, thankful for our parents, thankful for the opportunity for example, our parents who pay for our college, or thankful to the people in the state that pay their taxes so that we can go to school on a scholarship. Thankful for my work that allows me to make money so I can pay for my college and support myself. There's so many things that we can be thankful for. And we can start from the moment we wake up, laying in bed, before we start our day. And we can finish the day doing the same thing, reflecting on the day and being thankful. These are little practices that we can do, that anybody can do.
So you mentioned coaching, right? I'm very much a proponent of that. So a lot of the previous guests are business owners, founders. Coaching and mentorship, they're one of the same in my eyes. And really a good coach or a good mentor is about accountability, right? It's about making sure that not just hitting your goals or whatever objectives you have, but also keep you in line as well. I want to dive a little bit further in terms of the practice that is needed, right? So let's just say you're coaching somebody. How do I stay disciplined enough to make sure that I don't derail my day-to-day, right? So how, really what I'm asking for is that what are some of the techniques, or maybe you can help me with, to allow for me to stay disciplined with the practice itself?
So for example, one of the keys is to work honestly. And I described that part of working honestly means doing what we say and saying what we do. Is working with integrity, setting a goal for ourselves and giving our word and fulfilling our word. And so how can we hold ourselves, we can hold ourselves accountable by having respect for our word and realizing that with our word, we're creating the world that we want for ourselves, whether we realize it or not. And so if I say I'm going to do something, I fulfill my word. In the fact of me fulfilling my word, I'm holding myself accountable, and I'm working, taking little steps to reach that which I want later down the line. So if I want something in 9 months, I can set a list of goals for myself, and I work to fulfill one goal at a time. As I was saying to somebody else, there are little steps that we can take so that we can attain the big leaps that we want to make in our life. But in order to take those big leaps, we have to start with the little steps and do the little steps.
Are the 5 keys being seen as very much separate and independent, or they all link to one another? So you mentioned about don't get angry, keeping very much self-integrity and true to your word. How would you describe those 5 keys? Are they linked?
Well, they're definitely connected, and if a person can fulfill all 5 of them, the more that a person can put all 5 of them into practice, the more they can cultivate that happiness, this happiness that's inside of ourselves. But just if a person can work on one, sometimes one will take a lifetime. Just overcoming anger may take people one lifetime. Just people learning how to work honestly, in other words, not cheating and not lying, might take somebody their whole life. But that's a noble mission to do, to overcome something that needs to be overcome. And so if a person reads the book and it takes them years just to dial in their anger, but they're able to do it, that's a success in and of itself. That's a reason to be happy. Some people might gravitate more to some of these keys than the others. Some people might see the benefit of all of them. They can be taken as independent, but they can certainly be taken as being connected and related to one another. Practicing all 5 of them, I think, leads to a more well-rounded life.
So the 5 keys are useful in regards to our framework. What I've also took away from the book is there's a sense of self-excavation, if you will, right? To have inventory of who you are, really have a sense of want to not only improve oneself, but to understand the different characteristics and flaws, right? So part of the coaching process, how important is it to have more of a strong sense of self-exploration first before just, okay, well, based on the 5 keys, have you done X, Y, Z, right? So could you share a little bit about the importance of the need to be humble enough to understand that, okay, these are the things that I need to improve on?
Well, I think just just a person recognizing that there's something to improve is an act of humility. And because when a person can demonstrate this act of humility, they can then put themselves in a place to receive what they need. But sometimes people think that they're just fine the way that they are, and so they wouldn't receive any benefit necessarily from coaching if a person doesn't have any self-reflection to see that they can improve themselves. But if a person can recognize, hey, I struggle with anger, or a lack of humility. Some people struggle with a lack of humility, or some people struggle with not being honest, or some people they worry a lot. Some people aren't nice. And so if they can recognize that, if they see no problem, it's hard to receive a benefit when you don't think there's anything wrong. And so the humility is recognizing, hey, I could improve in this area, I can improve in that area. And then they'll be more apt to receiving and recognizing the benefit that they could get from putting into practice the things that are available for them to learn.
So you mentioned about worry. That one was a tough one for me, right? It's naturally, I am worried, right?
For you and me and most of us.
Right, and especially when you're a parent, right? Yep. So what counsel do you have in regards to so my interpretation is you're not saying don't worry. You're saying observe it, right? And how do I shift from constantly being worried to maybe worry less?
Eventually the goal is to not worry, is to have so much trust and faith in your creator, in my creator, and your creator, and our creator, that we don't have worry. But like I've said, that there's a difference between being worried versus being concerned. For example, I'm concerned with my kids' well-being. I'm concerned with what my kids are being taught in school. I'm concerned for my kids' safety. But if I worry, it's subject to paralyzing me and making me almost like this victim that life happens to. And so I was concerned with what my kids were being taught in school. So I pulled them out of the school and I put them in a school that I had a little more control over what was being taught to them. I'm concerned with my kids' well-being. So I put my kids in self-defense classes. One of them had to use the self-defense just last week. Someone went to attack him, and he defended himself, and he got out of the situation. And so something that I'm working myself on is to not waste my time worrying about things that I can't control. And most of the things we can't control. We have very little control. I can control what I do, what I say, how I think some of the times. Sometimes we can't even control that, because sometimes, for example, we have this nice peaceful mentality and then someone cuts us off in traffic, and we, before even thinking, we're already flicking the guy off, cursing and honking the horn and trying to get revenge by cutting the guy off. So sometimes we can control what we think. And so there's a song by Jason Mraz, Living in the Moment. I'm sure you've heard it. And it has a line in there. It says, I will not waste my days making up all kinds of ways to worry about things that will not happen to me. And so as a parent, we think about what's going to happen. How can I ensure my child's safe? How can I ensure that nothing happens? You know, that's a normal thing. But I think more powerful than focusing on that is focusing on our developing a trust that there's a plan for us and for our lives, that there's a planner, which is not necessarily us, and learning to give up a little bit of control of the reins and trust God more, that things are going to work out the way they need to, not necessarily the way that we want them to. And that with the time that we have, you know, instead of worrying about what my kids are going to, instead of worrying about my children being okay when I'm no longer around, taking proactive steps to educate them well now while we're here. If we're worried about how they're going to take care of themselves, teach them now, right? So we can be more proactive and less worrisome.
So more of arming them with the necessary skill set and tools.
Yeah.
So that
Knowing that they, like us, are individuals and have their own trajectories in life that they need to take. And that as much as we educate them, as good as we think that we're teaching them, they still have to make their own choices. And they might mess up.
So one of my hopes for this series, especially this summer, is Gainesville is known for a lot of spiritual centers, right, beyond the churches, right? You touch on something there, which is trusting the Creator. From my own learnings, part of that is a sense of surrendering, right? Yeah. Could you share a little bit about your understanding of how do I go about my day-to-day, reminding myself to trust, to have more faith, and to truly surrender?
Yeah. So I spoke about gratitude a few minutes ago. I said that lying in bed in the morning, I go through a list of things I'm grateful for. It's a way to connect to gratitude from the beginning of the day. But in that, I say in my morning prayers, I ask for stuff. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that I ask for, I say like this. I say, because we need to know how to ask, right? Because when I was younger, I always I always prayed, I always asked for God to let me be in the NFL. I would write in my journal, God, I want to be in the NFL. I want to be in the NFL. I want to be in the NFL. And so then I became 16. I went to high school, and I never specified I wanted to be a member of the National Football League. And so when I was 16, I joined the debate team, and I became a member of the NFL, the National Forensics League. And so we need to know how to ask. And so I say, dear Lord, or dear God, I ask that you please let me make the right choices so I can be prosperous and victorious in my life. Dear Lord, I ask that you please show me the signs so I know where to go and what to do so I can be victorious and prosperous. And I say, dear Lord, I ask that you please make me an instrument so that your will, please clarify my vision so that I can see the signs clearly, and so that I can be an instrument so that your will can be done through me. And with that, I'm on alert, looking for the signs and seeing how I can be an instrument. Sometimes it's not the way that I expect. Sometimes the signs aren't the signs that I want, but we can have this heightened level of awareness and start to look and see how it is that we can be an instrument for our Creator. How can we trust more and surrender to the process? Because sometimes things happen in our life and we don't understand why. But if we're aware that there's a plan that sometimes is beyond our comprehension, we can surrender and learn to trust the plan. And I don't know the plan. I know there's a plan. I don't know the plan. Just trust the plan. And in time, all things will be revealed.
So what you're sharing is in true surrendering, know the fact that there is a greater plan. Yeah. The greater plan is not in our control, not in my control, right? And have the awareness to understand that, seek more of guideposts, right? And able to go through life having that alertness. And sometimes when it doesn't go your way, just also know the fact that there is a greater plan. And
Yeah. Sometimes things happen in life that in the moment it's a great source of suffering. And it seems like it's never going to end and we're never going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Later, we make it out of the darkness, we get to the light, and we find more of a balance. And later, even further down the road, we're able to look back and understand with full clarity why we had to go through that. I had to go through that so that I could experience what I had to experience, so that today I could be in this place helping this person not make those same mistakes or whatever it is. Because there's a plan. We don't understand. In the midst of it, we might not understand it, but later we'll have clarity and we'll understand.
what reminded me is the famous Steve Jobs commencement speech. And so for him, it was very simple. He broke it through 3 phases of his life. And what I loved about the speech is he said, you can't really connect the dots looking forward, right? But you look backwards, you see that these dots are very much connected in a way that beyond anything you can expect. And here's a guy that got kicked out of his own company, but all of those things happen for a reason. And so he has the humility to be able to recognize that. So as a young person, though, that's a challenge, right? The young person is, you want to aspire, you want to achieve, you want to feel as if you have a sense of control over your life. Yep. And so if you were to coach me, right, how do I go about, so there's the gratitude practice, there's the knowing what to ask, and also I'm subject to at the whim of my own ambition and maybe like that, right? So what's another way for me to really find a better sense of trust and faith beyond the practice you shared already? Is that another technique that I can bring myself to say, okay, well, I may have failed an exam, I may have, gone out and got into a fight, right? So all the challenges that I'm facing, is it taking stock and breathing and stopping? So how would you coach me through that?
Well, I would say that there's a lot of stuff. It all starts with self-reflection. Like we need to, it sounds cliche, but it sounds cliche because it's true. We need to pay attention who we're surrounding ourselves with, what it is that we're putting our time and energy in. Oh, I failed the test. Why did I fail the test? Because it's part of a greater plan, or because I spent my days playing video games all night? Right? So because I didn't study and I chose to play video games? Or is there because there's a greater plan? So it's at the same time we can surrender to the greater plan, but we also have to be proactive in creating the reality and the life that we want for ourselves. And so with that, I say, go slow, look before you leap, right? I learned in elementary school, when you go to a body of water, look before you leap. So step slowly, take little steps. Don't try to go to the 5th step before going to the 4th and the 3rd and the 2nd step. So there's a whole process. And it doesn't have to be a religious thing. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. It's just a process of just going slow and doing self-reflection and seeing where it is that we can improve ourselves, little things that we can improve ourselves. If we have this thought that maybe we should not be doing something, we should maybe follow that thought and not do it, right? And at the end of the day, it's trusting, because everybody that's young thinks they're invincible. At least most people think they're invincible, right? I thought I was invincible till I got hit by a car on a motorcycle. Oh, wait a second. I'm not as strong as I thought. My mortality, you're young until you face your own mortality. Then all of a sudden you realize that every moment's precious. But when you're young, sometimes you don't realize all that stuff. You think you're young and ready to take on the world. But the sooner that a person can awaken to the fact that, our time is limited, and one day it's all going to end, we start to pay attention with what we're doing with our time. And I'm not saying give up and just surrender completely, but I'm saying there's a way that we can take our hands off the wheel a little bit and be led by something greater than ourselves. It's just a practice that we can do slowly. We don't have to do it all at once. With time, we develop more trust.
On the topic of trusting, surrendering, and the spiritual work, how do I do the work to understand myself better and understand the Creator better, right? Can I do, or can I start walking that path without necessarily being part of a church or a temple or a religious body? How would you counsel me through that, as somebody who's a college student, a young person, looking to say, okay, I had an event that happened, I'm ready to make some changes, right? How do I start walking that path and to learn more?
Something I heard said is that the something that they say in the Hindu tradition is that the guru presents himself when the disciple is ready, or the master presents himself when the disciple is ready. That master doesn't need to be clothed with a specific type of religious dress. There could be anybody in a person's life. That doesn't have to be, because when the word religion gets misconstrued. People think religion is church, temple, mosque, but religion means reconnection. It means reconnection, and we can find that reconnection with our Creator in many different ways. For some people, it's through religion, in the traditional religion in form of church. For other people, it's not. What's important is that we do it because we're all God's children, whether we realize it or not. That's the fundamental thing, number one. We're all God's children, whether we realize it or not, whether we believe it or not. And so for some people that may not believe in God, it might look a different way to them, but it's the same. They're doing the same thing. They're still going to surrender. They're still going to trust the process, whether they trust the hand of a person that's guiding them or a higher power that's guiding them. The process is the same. It doesn't matter whether they go to a church or whatever their religion is. It doesn't matter. And so as a young person, I think personal development is a good way to start, because personal development transformational and personal development doesn't require a person to believe in God or a higher power or none of that. And I think, but what's important is that we work to transform ourselves, because what I say in this book is like this, that happiness is an innate characteristic of the spirit. Okay, if you don't believe in the spirit or the soul, we can say happiness is a unique attribute of the human being. You can see that all babies, as long as they're clean and fed, they're happy, right? But at some point, something happens in their life, of the life of a child, that they lose that happiness. At some point, they lose that happiness. And then we have to work to recover it. And so you don't need a religion to recover it, but it requires a process of self-reflection, of looking back at our life, facing what we don't want to face. You don't have to believe in God to face what you have to face. Sometimes people have like trauma in their life. Sometimes it could be a large trauma, sometimes it could be a little trauma, but everybody has something. As long as a person is able to do the work of looking back and making peace, they can do that without any religion, without any belief in God, of learning to let go, of learning to forgive, of learning to trust in people more. If they don't want to trust in God more, they can trust in people more. All of this is possible for a person, regardless of their age. It doesn't, and they don't, or regardless of their religious affiliation. It's possible for everybody. But it's this work that we need to do within ourselves.
Part of the work, do you recommend better to be in association with others who are on the same path or with the same want, or because what I'm hearing is also being in isolation is you're subjected to at the whim of your own progress, right? So what I'm hearing here is you have somebody that can guide you, but also be in a community of sort, right? That's my own interpretation of, a church or a mosque is surrounding yourself with those who are shared values.
When a person is recovering from an addiction, they surround themselves with people that are also trying to overcome the addiction, not with drug users. Because if they associate themselves with drug users, they're going to fall back down. And so my parents used to always tell me, and there's this expression I believe exists in every culture, but the translation is basically, show me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. That's what it translates to. Right? It's like they also used to tell me, if you go to sleep with babies, you'll wake up wet. If you go to sleep with dogs, you'll wake up with fleas. It's the same type of thing. Those are the expressions that they would say, the colloquialisms in Spanish. And I believe they have those in all the cultures. And so association of like-minded individuals is going to produce whatever it is that we want for ourselves. So if we want to have fun and party all the time, we're going to go join a fraternity, and that's what the central focus is going to be. If we want to go and develop our business sense, we're going to join Six Sigma and whatever other professional associations. We're going to join a business networking group, and we're going to grow our business, and we're going to associate with people that are in the same mindset. If we want to rid ourselves of addictions, we're going to go join a group of people that are doing the same to rid themselves of certain addictions and vices. If we want to develop certain habits, certain characteristics, we're going to associate with people that have those characteristics so that we can develop them. And that's the beauty of coaching and mentoring, because we look, and it's the same thing as like having like a guru or spiritual master. There's certain habits and characteristics that we see in another person, and we associate with them so that they can help us develop those within ourselves. Hence the purpose of the book, which are 5 keys that each one of us can do to develop the habits that we want within ourselves.
Right. From my observation, right, we're in a college town. There's a lot of, you have a lot of flexibility and a lot of options based on your major, based on your friends. You mentioned about fraternity and sorority and things like that. Let's just say I'm in a setting where I'm looking around and I'm the only one wanting to do this. What's the best way for me to find, better associations?
That's what my high school life was. I saw people, and I saw people caring a lot about their. I had good grades and all that stuff, good SAT scores and all that stuff, but it was like their identity. They needed to get a certain score so they could go to Harvard. I had 2 friends that went to Harvard. I had another one that went to UPenn. And then a bunch of people that I knew when they graduated, they moved to New York City so that they could work in finance. And that was what mattered to them. But none of that mattered to me. And so when everybody that I knew left Gainesville, I stayed behind. Because what I wanted was simplicity, contact with nature. And so you have to be a trendsetter. Everybody that is successful at one point or another sets a trend. At the fork in the road, you got to make your choice of where you're going to go. There's a line by Jay-Z in a song called Renegade that he sings with Eminem, where he says, "I drove by the fork in the road and went straight." And so for some people it might mean driving straight at the fork in the road. For others it means taking the road less traveled. What's that quote? Who's that quote by? I took the road less traveled and it has made all the difference. Somebody famous, really famous, right? I took the road less traveled and it has made all the difference. There's a great movie called Big Fish, and it's all about what happens when you take the road less traveled. What an adventure the guy goes on. What a beautiful movie. And so at a certain point, we have to take a stand. Are we going to go with the crowd, or are we going to be a trendsetter? And so I saw that what everybody else was doing wasn't the path that I wanted for myself. So I did my own thing, and I've reaped all the benefits of my life. And today I'm in a place where I can share what I've learned and share what I've experienced with the hope of helping others so that they can discover what it is that's going to make them happy and what it is that's going to inspire them to help make the world a better place.
So my path is a bit similar. Came here for undergrad, been in Gainesville now for 24 years, right? Okay. So you mentioned about nature. Let's take a little bit of a detour, if you will, right? What is it about nature that can really help us, or help me walking this path that allows me to reap all the benefit that you mentioned, right? So is nature a necessity for my own development, for my own happiness? Because I don't think you mentioned too much. You mentioned here and there, but what is it about being immersed in nature, and what can nature teach me?
because nature is the physical manifestation of the divine is found in nature. We can see the we can see the natural cycle of creation by going out in nature. We can see how the river flows. We can see how the tides rise and the tides go down, which is all a reflection of what happens in life. We can see how the cycles of the moon work, which are similar to the cycles in the human life. Sometimes it doesn't seem like there's much light in the sky. Other times there's a little. Sometimes it's full brightness. Then it retreats and goes down again. Same thing with the sun. Sometimes as the sun's rising, so is our fortune, our prosperity. Then the sun's fully blazing in the sky at high noon. Then with time things go down. The cycle goes on a downward trend, but then the next day it comes back. And so by connecting to nature, I don't know, there are some people, but a lot of people, the majority of people, really love being in touch with nature. There's something about what people love going to nature. Could be swimming in the ocean, skiing in the mountains, playing in the snow, climbing in the trees, walking in an open field with wildflowers. People love nature, and by connecting to nature, whether we realize it or not, we're connecting with the divine. And when we can connect with the divine, we can have this contemplation, this self-examination, this meditation, where we can start to look and focus on what really matters instead of keeping our head in a phone all the time, or being on a computer, or watching a television, surrounded by artificial light, right? And so when we go out into nature, it helps us connect to something higher. And in connecting with something higher, we can do this work of looking at who we are.
So, do you recommend part of what you share, right, is that sometimes life happens, right, and we get to learn from it. Again, go back to the topic of, because that's primarily our audience here, right? So if I'm in college, I'm starting to explore. How important is it for me to say, okay, well, now I really need to look inward and work on myself, or just go with the flow, right? And let life happen and trust that part of that experience will teach me, right? So how would you, again, counsel somebody young that has that sense of, I may need to look inward, or just have that trust that time will come? So meaning, so the question I'm having is that, do you say, let's prioritize that if you have that inkling and pursue it, or just, let time takes its course and you're right there?
I think it's different strokes for different folks. I do. I think it's different strokes for different folks. But I think that everything needs to be done in moderation. I heard, I don't know if it's Joe Rogan that said it, or he was quoting somebody else, where he goes, everything in moderation, including moderation. And so sometimes, there's sometimes as a college kid, for example, where it's fun to go out to the game and go and hang out with our friends. And for sure I did that. Like I would have, when I was in college, we would do Sunday Fun Day. And we would cook Italian food and watch The Sopranos. That was our thing. We watched The Sopranos, and then we watched another show, Sunday Fun Day. Hung out with our friends. Sunday Fun Day. We watched those shows. We had that meal. But then there was other times when I was doing my meditations with nobody around, or I'd be walking in nature by myself. And then there was other times when I'd be hanging out with my friends. There'd be other times when I was studying in the library. And so everything in moderation, because specifically for college kids. College kids are here to get an education, so that needs to be a priority. But at the same time, a person can't lose sight of the higher priority, which is, what are we here for on this planet? We're not here to become little mindless robots that work 9 to 5. That's not the purpose of life. Within our greater purpose, which is to develop ourselves as human beings, to be more peaceful, more trusting, more grateful, more honest and kinder, there's room for developing ourselves professionally, developing our interests, whether it's in sports or whatever it is. But at the same time, we can't lose sight of what's the most essential, which is this developmental component of every human being, And we're here to study and learn to learn whatever it is that we need to learn so we can be engineers and nurses and teachers and whatever it is that the students are going to become. But there's something more, and we have to prioritize each thing at the right moment. Sometimes we need to give more time for ourselves. Other times we need to give more time for our family. Other times we need to give more attention for our work or school. We just need to learn whatever it is that's needing, we need to give to whatever it is that's in need.
Well, as with our show format, we're going to turn it over to the audience. Before we do that, thank you so much for being here. I want to put in the show note where to get your book, how to learn more about your coaching offerings. But for now, turn it back to the audience. Lauren, Stacy, anybody have a question for Jonathan?
Sure. The designated question asked.
That's why I looked at you.
No, I really enjoyed the talk. I was curious, not sure if I missed it during the talk, but you define happiness. Is it a state that you get to, or is it something that you aspire to get to, but you never quite reach?
No, I believe that happiness is a state that each one of us possesses, that it's almost as if it's there. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. Let's say like we have a car, it's parked, and outside the window is a place called happiness. And happiness is this beautiful place, but we're not able to see it clearly because our windshield has bugs on it and dirt and mud. And so, but that place is always there. And so what the book and the process helps us to do is learn how to clean that windshield so that we can see that happiness which is already there. It's not a place to get to. It's not a state to aspire to. It's a place that exists naturally inside of ourselves, that somewhere along the line of our life, we've muddied that windshield with the experiences that life throws at us. It just happens. And so what we need to do is learn to clean that windshield. How? I give 5 keys on how we can clean that windshield so that we can see this happiness which already exists inside of ourselves. That sometimes some of us have more glimpses of than others, that each of us needs to work to cultivate more in our life. Not that it's not there, but we need to cultivate the circumstances so that we can be able to perceive this happiness, which is always there. It's always been there.
Okay. How long have you been coaching?
Officially since the end of last year when I wrote this book, but I've been in a place of let's call it religious/spiritual counseling since 2000 and I want to say 2018.
So there was something you said about the fork in the road, and well, not the fork in the road, where you were everything in moderation. Should I kind of go with the flow and kind of think, or should I be goal oriented while I'm in school? You were saying different strokes. So, how do you think you would handle someone, people from different, let's say, different backgrounds, that sort of thing? Or do you feel like your tools can apply to everyone?
I think that they're universal. And I write them in English, but I think that because for example, I one of the things I talk about in the book is gratitude. And in the book, I cite the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Hindu scripture, and how they stress the importance of gratitude. So that, along with the rest of the book, I think is pretty universal. Obviously, there's going to be little circumstances, cultural idiosyncrasies of different people, but as a general, the book is written to attend to everybody, regardless of religious affiliation, cultural background, etc.
Thanks.
Do you leave happiness as a boundary? And can you be too happy?
I think that one time, I'll tell you something funny. I said, one time when I was starting to get to know the Hare Krishnas here in town, I lived in an apartment 2 doors down. I live over by, they have a temple there by Krispy Kreme. and I lived like 3 doors down from there in an apartment building, and I had a friend, and they would walk by, and my friend was like, "It's not possible to be that happy without drugs." That's what he told me. It's not possible to be that happy without drugs. That's what he said to me. And I think that there's a song in Portuguese where it says like this. It says, "Laughing is good. Laughing too much is despair." And so I think that I don't want to say that a person can be too happy, but I think that we also have to be grounded in reality, because as human beings, we're, you know, we have to find a way to be happy, but at the same time we have to be in touch with reality, that in reality there are some things that cause suffering, there are some things that hurt, there but we have to find a way to be happy through it, but not happy in a sense where we don't want to face reality. I'm just too happy. I'm not going to let it. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to face reality. I'm just happy, like blissed out of our mind. And so I think that we need to. I think that we need to find a balance. We have to be happy. We have to find a way to be happy at all time. But too happy. I don't know what too happy. I don't know what too happy means. I think that if a person is happy, they're grounded. I think that we need to be grounded and not be like, we're so happy that we're spacey that we don't even deal with the reality of the yeah, or like happy to the point of being oblivious to the reality. To see people suffer and be like, but it's okay, I'm happy, and the world's such a good place. That's okay, but there's people suffering. Let's help these people suffering. In that sense, I think that we don't want to cross. We don't want to. I don't want to be like that. And in the because I'm a happy person, but if I see a person suffering, sometimes I suffer to see them suffering. But for me, because for me to be like, but I'm happy and they're suffering and I'm so happy, and it's kind of like disingenuous, I feel like, to a certain point. But that line I like. It says, "Laughing is good. To laugh is good, but to laugh at everything is despair." And so I feel like that's with happiness. We can't be happy at everything, because I don't feel that that's a person being in touch with reality. But in the face of reality, we have to find happiness.
I like that. Facing
Well, on that note, thank you so much again for coming today. Thank you to Clay and Lauren for this beautiful backdrop to our show today. And of course, Cliff and Seven Ashes, I appreciate, as always, you documenting this whole series with us. And Jonathan, thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right.